One of the most fascinating subjects, but one of the most boring discussions, is anything involving the Middle East or Israel. Let me say this again. This subject is fascinating. Israel, Palestine, Gaza, it's fascinating. The history, the Balfour Declaration, the Nakba, it's fascinating. The discussions are either this or this. That's it. No angiogenesis of ideas. No. This or this. And you figure out what this or this means. This is where we are right now. This is where we are. And there is no room for, well, let's talk about this. I understand. No. It's either you have to be either 100% this or this. And I'll let you decide again what this or this means. So recently there was this Douglas Murray and that Smith feller or whatever was on with Joe Rogan. And Douglas, it was boring, per usual. But this is a very interesting thing. Douglas Murray was asking, had a skeptical eye on how Joe was handling this thing. And Joe and Douglas Murray is, and I hate to use this, pro-Israel. That doesn't even say it. Pro-Israel, pro Netanyahu, I don't even know what it is. Pro-Israel, the state, the country of Israel, the people of Israel, that's one thing. To be pro-Semitic, as opposed, that's one thing. Even the words don't apply. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. So Joe Rogan doesn't owe Douglas Murray, or what people are going to be saying, AIPAC, anything. And what they're going to be saying is, so that you know this, they're saying that Joe Rogan may have either a beef with or may not be necessarily as interested in providing a kind of a pro-Israel take. But others will say, yeah, but Murray and these others are basically AIPAC propagandists. That's unfair too, because that's like saying you can't have an independent view that is pro, let's say, Netanyahu, without AIPAC subsidizing it. I've always believed, for example, in the Second Amendment. And when I talked about this, people said, this was the old days when the NRA was like, you're pro-NRA, you're a gun lobby person. I say, no, I'm not a gun lobby person. You see where we get into this? This is why this subject is just, But anyway. So let's set the record straight. Joe Rogan is not a news network, okay? And this may come as a shock. It may come as a shock to you. But he doesn't owe anybody anything. Nothing. All right? Fox News doesn't have to put anybody on either. What is this? North Korea? He's not a government agency. He's not a mouthpiece for foreign policy narratives. He's an independent podcaster with a free-thinking platform that's built on a long-form, honest discussion, not curated propaganda. And whatever he wants to believe in, UFO. Do you have the anti-UFO position? Do you have the, he's wondering how did they build the pyramids? Could it have been from alien forces? Do you have the anti-alien forces? This is ridiculous. This is the fairness doctrine. If Douglas Murray or anybody wants to have 100% Israel or pro-Hamas or pro-Gaza or pro-whatever, fine. So when Douglas Murray, the ever-polished British intellectual turned, I don't want to say Israel apologist, because a lot of people, he's called that. Again, and I'm very sensitive to that, because that's like saying you can't independently be on the side of Israel without you being an AIPAC person. And by the way, if the NRA went along and said, could we pay you to say that which you say anyway? Absolutely. I'll take it. It doesn't change my opinion. It may fortify it. Who knows? But in any event. So he was scolding Rogan for not having enough Israeli voices. And we have to ask the question, who appointed Douglas Murray the content police? Now, he did it in a very, very nice way, and I understand this. Rogan doesn't owe any airtime to any government. United States, Israeli, British, Palestinian, anything. Foreign, domestic. He doesn't serve the Knesset. He doesn't serve DNC or the RNC. He doesn't do any of that stuff. The Likud party or anybody. Any alphabet, intel agency, nobody. What he does create is a rare space where real conversations happen, sometimes unfiltered, without marching, orders from legacy media, or lobbying firms or think tanks in Washington. And that's why I think he's successful, one of the many reasons. That's why people trust him more than CNN, MSDNC, and yes, even Douglas Murray. Okay, fine. Which is what you're entitled to. Now, many people are suggesting, they'll tell you, Douglas Murray is not just some concerned spectator. His obsession with defending Israel. I love this. Why does he have an obsession? Do I have an obsession with anything? But they say, he's just another one of these, and this is an anti-Semitism, but it's unfair. He's absolutely obsessed with defending Israel. But what if somebody's obsessed with defending Palestine? Well, that's different. That's okay. And he's quick to accuse others of bias, of course, of silence, of imbalance. Yet never anybody stops to question the stench, if you will, of one-sided advocacy trailing behind appearances. And what I'm saying is, I know what he's going to say. If you, I think we need to get back to this. I think we need, when you have Norman Finkelstein, when you have anybody, I know what they're going to say. And the question people say is Douglas Murray being paid by AIPAC? Is he some shill? I don't know if anybody knows. I don't even know if it's relevant, because nobody will ever ask you the contrary. You see, this is the part that I think is critical. And this is what I want people to understand. I want to live in a country where you can come out and be, you can believe in anything you want. There are people that I know who are able sometimes to compartmentalize a belief. And they will say, for example, how can you countenance or agree or tolerate the innocent slaughter of Gazans or Palestinians? How can you allow this? Other side will say, how can you sit back and countenance and agree and go along with what happened on October the 7th? Why are you an apologist for Hamas? Don't you understand? And then back and forth. I'm not an apologist for Hamas. Well, I'm not an apologist for Israel. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You're being paid by AIPAC. That's the new thing. There are two words that obfuscate and confuse the discussion: AIPAC and Zionism. When you use those terms, now, I'm not saying that they're not relevant, but as you know, our penchant and predisposition and proclivity for shortcutting terms, it gets very, very dangerous. Once you get into this, we say, my side says woke too much. Oop, there's that thumb thing. I don't know where that's from. We say woke. They'll say far right. They even use the word disgraced. You can't use the word Anthony Weiner without saying disgraced former congressman. Disgraced. We get into these words. And when we do this, whether it's Zionism, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's how do we say this? There's anti-Semitic. How can I forget that? That one's been thrown around half of the time because, well, you're Douglas, you're an AIPAC show. Well, you're an anti-Semite. Wait a minute. Meanwhile, nobody's talking about what's actually going on. So going back to what I originally said about this thing, Joe Rogan does not owe anybody anything. Period. And if Joe Rogan, if you want to ask Katie Halper or Norman Finkelstein or Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate, how come you don't have any pro, if you will, members of the Likud party? Well, they might say, well, we tried, but nobody would come on. But the question is unfair because you don't have to. You don't have to have anybody on. I don't understand this. It's like when people would say, I'm watching Fox News. I don't see enough people of color on. We're getting into that again. I guess what I'm trying to say in a very, very matter-of-fact way, and I myself have always been, I've been accused of, I'm either a conspiracy theorist or I'm a Trumper or some right-winger or far-right. I could sit down and talk with either side of virtually any topic and be able to argue their point. Maybe it's the lawyer in me. I could go into a Douglas Murray group, talk with his people, and I'm not saying not mock them, not necessarily agree with either one, but I could say, I understand exactly what you're saying. And they will listen to me and they'll say, he knows exactly what we're saying. And no, I don't think they're crazy or evil or murderous. I can go across the hall and speak to a Finkelstein group, and they will understand 100%. And I will say exactly what they're saying. And they'll say, that's precisely it. You understand. Well, I have a hybrid understanding. I have a hybrid, if you will, kind of a composite understanding. The thing about it, though, is that you have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing? Do I owe anybody some duality of opinion? No. They did this years ago for those of us in the business of talk radio when they wanted to have the fairness doctrine. They said that we had to stop what we were doing to have somebody from the other side. What was the other side? So the question is, I want to say is this. Good for Douglas Murray, good for everybody else, good for Finkelstein and Max Blumenthal and whoever it is. But Joe Rogan owes nothing to anyone. Nothing. If he wants to have 100% pro or anti-Israel, whatever that means, that's up to him. It's up to him. He's not a news organization, and even if he was, he doesn't have to give both sides of anything. Is that biased? Maybe. But I guarantee you, nobody who ever agrees with what you're saying ever calls you biased. Bias is always the term that the other side uses to dispel the legitimacy or the veracity or the accuracy of somebody they don't like. Okay? Okay. Now, what do you think? This is a great topic. What do you think? Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. And whatever you do, I ask you to always comment as you see fit.